everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Kendall Turner. I am a Sustainable Design Specialist in HOK's Washington, D.C. office, and I will be moderating our conversation today. For Black History Month, HOK Perspectives wanted to bring together some members around the firm to talk about their design journeys and identities. We always want to celebrate our diversity and accomplishments here at HOK. We have some discussion points and we'll evolve the conversation as it goes on. The chat will be open to everyone for comments and questions. Let's go around and introduce ourselves by name, position, and how long we've been at HOK. I'll start. My name is Kendall Turner. I started at HOK this past January, and I am very happy to be representing sustainability here today. Let's move on to Ralph.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Ralph Raymond out of the Atlanta office, serving as a project architect. I've been with HOK 12 or 13 years and really been enjoying the entire time.
Thank you. And Ben? Oh, Ben, you're muted.
My apologies, everyone. I think we know this by now. Good morning. I'm Ben Crawford. I'm a design leader in Dallas. Been in the Texas offices between Houston and Dallas for about almost 18 years.
Thank you. And Amaka?
Hi, my name is Nneamaka Amadi, but everyone calls me Amaka. I am a design professional at the Toronto office, and I have been working for HOK for almost 2 years now. Yeah.
Thank you. And it's worth noting that Amaka is not from America originally. Can you speak on that?
Oh, yeah. So I hail from Nigeria, West Africa. So yeah, and I moved to Canada like 5, 6 years ago. So I'm excited to talk about my journey.
Yes, thank you. All right, well, we will get started. Our first question is the fact that we're having this conversation because it's Black History Month, and we go back and forth on the value of it and its relationship with the corporate world and virtue signaling, as we discussed in our introductory meeting for this call. So, what is your take on Black History Month? We'll start with Ralph.
Well, for me, I think it's really the idea of recognizing individuals who have historically been unsung. And, there's a camp, a group of individuals who definitely want to make every day historical in the sense that we should be recognized, all the contributions of all Americans, regardless of their ethnicity, et cetera, year round to really celebrate the work and impact of these individuals. But particularly for Black History Month, for me, it's always been since I was a young kid, was really about the celebration of the individuals who paved the way to get us as far as we have gotten. And that can be from, anyone from the originally from Africa or all the diaspora. And it's really about celebration and the ability to get together and recognize those individuals. So I'll kind of keep it short there and pass it on.
Wonderful. Thank you for your answer. And Amaka?
Yeah, so back at home, we don't necessarily celebrate Black History Month because, well, I grew up all surrounded by Africans, so it wasn't something we celebrated. But I totally understand like the need for it because I when I was in the UK, because I did my undergrad in the UK and I was the only Black female in my year, and also here in Canada, I was the only Black person in my year for my master's degree. So it would have been it's nice to have like a community and a culture and like seeing people who are similar to you to kind of like inspire you in your day to day in the industry and in the field. So I think it's a good thing that looking at it from a different perspective, growing up where I never had to think about the way I look or anything. So it's I totally understand the importance of it.
Yes, and it must have been challenging or confusing to be the only African woman in the environment. I experienced the same in architecture school, but we had some Black female architectural professionals. So it was nice to have them in the school teaching us and providing that example. And now being here at HOK, I see so many women who have paved the path for me in my future architecture licensure, and I'm able to go to them and discuss. So I won't dwell on that for too long. I'll pass it on to Ben. Why don't you tell us what you think about Black History Month? We can hear you, Ben.
Sorry, I'm going to get this right. I think it's interesting to hear the perspectives that all three of you have, in part because they mirror my mixed feelings about it. I'm probably a little older than you all, and I guess you imagine at a certain point that the notion of recognition or of, at least in America, of people of different ethnicities and the contributions they've created to the country wouldn't be controversial. It wouldn't be, it would just be history
Right.
at a certain point versus having to point out that, hey, we still have all these people that are underrecognized or underappreciated. So it's a little bit unfortunate for me, saddens me as I get older to imagine that we're still fighting for those kind of recognitions. But I'm also a person that, to be fair, believes that we don't celebrate enough, and we should celebrate people that have done special things that, because there's always going to be people that are overlooked in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's beneficial that we do it, but I wish we didn't need it.
Indeed. And I appreciate the fact that HOK has facilitated this event because it allows us to talk about Black history as it relates to architecture and some of the experiences we have that may differ from others. Next, we have a fun question. Who is your Black icon? We'll start with Ralph, and this is not limited to architecture.
To be fair, I think George Washington Carver is one of the primary examples that I received that I heard about when I was a student. And I think the amount of ingenuity and the work that he put forth was really just compelling to say, wow, you can actually, it doesn't, in that point in time, it didn't really matter what your race was. You were doing, he was doing things that was the first in any right, outright. And so that kind of was really inspirational to say that even in all the world of technology and advancement, if you're diligent and you work hard and you have, clear aspirations, clearly there's a lot of work that needs to be put into it. You can, on your own, achieve greatness. It doesn't require that you have to put a staple of, well, the first Black or the first, no, just outright, this is what they did. And on its own, it had its own merits that, to this day we talk about. So
I agree. And if you don't know George Washington Carver, there's a great segment on him in the Proud Family movie. So you can YouTube that and learn about him. Amaka, who is your Black icon?
I was just thinking about a bunch of them are coming through my mind as you asked that
Mm-hmm.
question, but the one that stands out right now is Cynthia Erivo. So
Oh,
she's
yeah.
a female musician, writer, author. Like she is amazing. She does Broadway. She acts. She produces her own movies, and like I think it was a movie she acted as a Harriet Tubman, and she sang a song in that movie, and like that song just is always on replay on my playlist, and she's just such someone to look up to. Like I just love her presence and how she keeps going and driving herself to keep doing things as a female, as a Black person, as just a human, to be honest, to make the world a better place. So like I really like that about her. Yeah, that's my.
I totally agree. And she is going to be in the new Wicked movie,
Yes,
which is
that's
one of
it.
my favorite Broadway productions. I've seen it multiple times. So I'm excited for her in that journey. Okay, how about you, Ben?
Boy, I saw this question. I wasn't even sure where to go because I have so many that people that I admire. I would say in our field, actually, there's a gentleman by the name of Max Bond who, when I was younger as a practitioner, was a person who was leading a firm, was very much in the kind of corporate sphere in terms of architecture in many of the ways that HOK is. Had managed to, through the course of his just diligence and ability, to kind of rise to the top of a leading firm in New York, and was really a seminal figure in the community there. So he's somebody that I've always admired in terms of his ability to, blaze this trail. And not that, he was a trailblazer in terms of his own role, but, but there's also obviously lots of people prior to him that helped open doors for him as well. But Max is somebody that I personally kind of really find inspirational.
Indeed. I find the path as an African American in the design space looks very different from others. And if I were to answer this question myself, I'll give a shout out to HOK's Kim Dowdell, who is my biggest inspiration, because every once in a while I'll see her walking by and she'll answer my questions about architecture licensure and the AIA. And I so appreciate having her as a resource as a African American going into architecture licensure, but also as a new HOK employee. So shout out to Kim. And I'll continue on the design topic. Let's talk about how small the Black community representation is in the design industry. What does the value of having representation in this field mean to you? Starting with Ralph.
So for me, so I actually hail from Haiti, was born in Haiti, but was raised in Atlanta since I was maybe 3, 4 years old. So I'm Atlanta most of the way, but I still have the ever foreign, immigrant lifestyle that's at home versus when I'm out in public. So navigating that space has always been interesting. But one of the things for me was I didn't know about architecture. I grew up in, you could imagine a foreign family. They, have limited means and income, so they live probably not in the best places in town. So really, there was no real exposure. Even though I wanted to be an architect since I was 5 years old, I wasn't exposed to architecture until I was graduating. Like actually, I said I was going to do it. I did research, it was on my own, but I had no exposure, no outside research or resource to that, and that really was one of my kind of driving factors. Not only did I want to expose that, architecture to Haiti from my home country, but when I look back on it, I was like, wow, I could have probably been further along. No, maybe not, but that's what I tell myself, right? But that outreach and that exposure to underrepresented areas was something that I lacked, and really thought that once once you kind of know when you're exposed to architecture and even design, that thinking, it really puts you on a different path. And so what my expectation of outreach and giving back and seeing people, because once ran into some mentors who actually were old HOKers, former HOKers who were, I met during college, they really helped in advance. And to this day, they're still my mentors, because that connection and having that understanding of, oh wow, you understand where I'm coming from, even though we were not from the same place. There's instant connectivity and familiarity with that, and so that's really one of the greatest things of seeing someone who looks like you, even though they might not be from the exact diaspora part of the diaspora that you're from. And so I think that's always been an amazing part of being the diaspora. I think.
Indeed. I think we typically gravitate to those who look like us when we are in a new environment. And when you are navigating architecture school for the first time, it can be very difficult if there's no one who looks like you, because you feel isolated. And I was grateful that I did have some diversity, but there were many classes where I was the only African American student, and I had to cope with that and not let that affect my education. So, Amaka, let's talk about the value of representation in the architecture field.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Like I said earlier, I grew up in Nigeria, so I never felt different, like in terms of standing out in a room because of everyone looked like me, right? And growing up as a kid, a lot of Africans tend to build their own houses. So I've always kind of been around architecture in a sense. I remember going to my dad buying a piece of land and being in the process of like seeing the building go from foundation to the top, to everything being completely done. He involved us in like, oh, how do you want your room to look like? What color of tiles do you want for your bathroom? Like, do you want the living room to face this place? Do you want a pool and stuff like that? So it's kind of like, we didn't get the pool though, but it's kind of like I've always been associated with it, but it didn't really like stick out to me like, oh, I want to be an architect or anything. It was when I was in high school, I was really good at technical drawing, and everyone was like, oh, you're really good at this. Why don't you like venture into this? And I've always been interested in like spatial awareness, how a person navigates through the environment and the space. How can we interact with the way we live, and how can we make that better? So that's kind of how I got into architecture. And I think it's really important that we people like us, or we just have more people, diversity, whatever race you are, in architecture, so that people from younger people can see us as a role model, or just like, oh, there's someone like this, they did this. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you don't have to be like the greatest in the world, but just having people in the community being in that space, it's such an inspiration. And I hope I can inspire whoever is listening to this later in the future, that I inspired them to like want to be an architect, or know that there is a space for them in this field. So yeah.
That's a beautiful answer. And I appreciate the fact that you said you don't have to be the best to be someone's inspiration, because so many people feel like they can't go back to their alma mater or give back to their communities because they don't have the big title or the big following. But you can be someone's inspiration. And I highly encourage everyone, not just our African American staff members, to go back to where you came from and educate those about your industry. And now, Ben, tell us about the value of representation in the field.
Um, Great answer. Like, I think for me, a lot of the notion of representation is really just about normalizing the presence of different groups of people. So my hope is that it's no longer unusual, and that we get to a place where there's an expectation that this is a field that's available to us, and that, and some of this is, like you said, Kendall, is spreading the word to those that come behind us, or those that might aspire to this field, or those that are even maybe not as aware of this field existing, that we can kind of help spread the word a little bit. And to the point that was just made, I think it's really important to let people know there's always room, for another voice in this profession. That's one of the lessons that kind of helped me in my journey, was, in places where I didn't feel like I had mentors or people that I could model, or really connect to. I got some advice that there is always room, and some of it's just a matter of you finding your voice, finding your place in the profession, and some of that is your own work. Some of that is obviously the connections you make with other people, and then, for me at least, there's then a duty to provide that for others where you can.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that answer. Now, we're going to move on into some of our personal accomplishments. You can talk about your accomplishments related to HOK or outside of HOK. Let's start with Ralph.
I guess this is a bragging moment time.
Yes.
I was extremely proud of. So once again, I wanted to be architect since I was 5 years old. So one of the important things that really was important to me was getting through school and getting licensed very early. At the time when I got licensed, I had a goal for 25, and I finished everything at the age of 25, and due to some holidays, I got it when I was 26. So that was really important for me, and that actually made me the youngest licensed architect in the state of Georgia at the time. And so I was really proud of that, because that really meant it was time to go. No one could take that away from me. And having your own license is really something that is owned by you. And if parents, immigrant family, they are excited for you more so than you probably were when you realized it. But that's something that was really, really fun moment, and really was a sign to say, let's actually continue to give back and continue to forward that mission. Because once again, had I known a little bit more when I was growing up, maybe I could have made it 24. I don't know. We'll never know. But the idea is that we can all reach out to someone to give them that extra push and kind of direction. And so I've always immediately provided direction where I could to those behind me. And so one of the things I'm really proud about is that, I'm writing questions for the AREs, and kind of forming a pathway to licensure. So I've really been involved with NCARB, AIA, and NOMA, really trying to make sure that the people who need to hear the information can get that information. So I'm really proud of all those leadership roles that led me to get people on track to feed the diversity pipeline and basically the entire architectural pipeline that we know is struggling overall. So those are kind of my bragging points right now.
Thank you. And you mentioned NOMA. Can you speak to your work with NOMA?
Yeah, so I'm the served on NOMA Atlanta for about 12 years. Now the immediate, prior past president, I served um, religiously on trying to make things equitable, especially during the pandemic. That was a really important moment, and definitely kudos to HOK of how they're able to leverage some of the work that needs to be done. I won't jump to the next question here, but yeah, so past president as well as Georgia, and so on. So.
Thank you for highlighting that. Nneamaka, why don't you talk about some of your proudest accomplishments?
Uh, okay, so I finished my master's like 2, 3 years ago, so I'm excited about that.
Yes.
And I'm on my way to getting my architecture license. So I'm on the internship programming path, and here at HOK actually last year we collaborated with the BEDA, which is the Black Architects Interior Design Association, and Black students designers to mentor Black student designers. So that was a really fun project because I got, even as a young intern, it was nice to like be able to have an impact on someone that was younger than me and inspire them in the field. So I guess that would be a good accomplishment of mine. And being on this call right now and talking about my experience, it's quite an accomplishment. So yeah.
Absolutely. We can have a study session to study for exams whenever you like.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Exactly.
All right. Ben, why don't you speak to your accomplishments?
I don't know that, nothing, I guess, in the spirit of normalizing, the things we're talking about, I was very proud to get my license. Ralph, the advice I got was once I got that stamp was put it in a drawer and never use it. And then I think just I've been fortunate enough to practice for a fair amount of time. So it was a proud moment, for instance, to get to design buildings in my hometown of Atlanta. I was able to do some projects downtown Atlanta. So that was kind of neat to be able to, for my family to go and drive by the building and be like, oh, okay, yeah, the W Hotel, I know that building, and likewise, similar experiences in Houston and now in Dallas. So I think for me, building is the core of why I do this. I like the idea of creating things with people and the notion of, having that tangible artifact of a building that people get to enjoy and hopefully enriches the city has been important to me. So just getting to build has been, I find joy in that. And then, I'm, lucky enough to be over 50 and I can still play a little bit of basketball. So I'm proud of that as well. I haven't blown up my Achilles yet, so it's all good.
Nice. That's awesome. I 100% agree that the tangible nature of architecture can be so rewarding. I worked on a project on Pennsylvania Avenue here in DC, and there is a plaque that I drew in Revit, and it was engraved into stone and installed into the building. And I can just go there and put my hand on it, and I know that I did that. And there are other buildings I've worked on, some sustainable design, of course. We've received multiple LEED certifications for buildings I've worked on in the past year. And one in particular I found interesting because we were working with the FBI and we were able to achieve a goal not just for the FBI as an agency, but also for the federal requirement of having LEED silver at a minimum. So it's very encouraging that we are helping the government push for these sustainable design initiatives. So I am so proud to be at HOK and I am grateful for this opportunity today. Our next question is related to celebration and uplifting. What does that look like to you, and how do you like to uplift others? Ralph?
So I'm gonna take a page from some of the work that HOK has done. For me, it's not a party, it's not a one day thing. It's really having a commitment to the change, right? And so some of the work and effort that, we push on the NOMA side, AIA side, of course, HOK has been doing it, is really putting your money where your mouth is, right? And really every single day creating avenues and space for people to rise to the occasion. So the emerging leaders on the different boards, I was able to serve on the emerging leader on the technical board. Moments like that, really putting investiture in the NOMA's HBCU PDP program, really going into HBCUs, really investing and doing it year long and putting your money where your mouth is, really being there, not just saying, "Hey, we're going to celebrate Black History Month with this or that," but really year round, 365 is leap year 366. We really want to make sure that we're entrenched and really providing people avenues. Because once again, I was able to get into HOK because of NOMA as well as HOKers who looked like me that said, "Hey, let's give this guy a shot. He might be okay." Right. And so that's how you celebrate and continue that work. It's not a cake, it's not a one day thing, it's a real commitment to the change.
Yes. And to contradict that slightly, I think that it is important to celebrate people when cake is appropriate. We actually just had our office manager's birthday, and we surprised her with a cake, and we wanted her to know just how important she is for this office and HOK's DC RBU as well.
To let them eat cake.
Oh, yes. Amaka, how do you celebrate and uplift, and what does that look like
Um,
to you?
yeah, like what Ralph and Ben said, it's not necessarily a thing of sticking out or like saying, oh, this particular day or this particular moment we want to celebrate Black people. It should be a normal thing. I just think it's, and I wish and I hope we do get to a point where it's just something that is normal. We celebrate everybody and every race and every kind of human, right? So for me, I just find like finding similarities in people, whether it's your race, whether it's your culture, your religion, the things, your hobbies, just a way where you can connect with someone so that you know that, oh, they are seen and I'm seen too, and you have a space and a community. And obviously like having cake or a party is nice too, so that's a good way of celebrating. Yeah, just making people know that you too are seen. Yeah.
Indeed, especially because we consider celebrating when we've hit a milestone, but very often it's important to celebrate each other when we're just doing our best. And sometimes we getting through a hard day is worth celebration, and lifting your team members up is very encouraged. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I tend, as I said before, I think we don't celebrate enough. So I think it's important for small victories. I think the point you were just making, I very much agree with. It's as much about kind of the daily reinforcement of creating an environment where people feel like they were able to do their best work, can bring their whole selves to the work that we do together, and be in a place and creating an environment where that's the expectation, and people feel like they can thrive. So for me, that's really my goal, and part of that is doing that as somebody who happens to be Black, but hopefully making that environment uh, for everyone that comes to join us, and wants to work and do the work that we do together. That to me is the part that I try to celebrate each day, or try to help uplift that as a way of thinking and a way of approaching working together. And I believe it translates into the work that we do together. So for me, that's probably my method, I guess I'll say, of celebrating or uplifting.
Yes, using that method, I would suggest for everyone to vocalize when you feel like you have done something worth celebrating. Don't be afraid to speak highly of yourself, because we want to celebrate each and every one of you, all 300 of you. And in this environment, it gives us so many ways to talk about our experience in the office. So I'm glad that we touched on that. Let's move on to community. How do you all find community in the workplace here at HOK? We'll start with Ralph.
Honestly, it's the small wins, and I love to make jokes. So if you are a jokester, you definitely can vibe with me all day. But there's really is kind of this admiration for each other in the work that we do, right? So we know we work on some very stressful projects, and I learned very early on, like when I was an intern, it was like, oh wow, that mistake was more than my salary, and we really come to the realization that we really have to kind of believe in each other, but also have to have those moments of reprieve. So just being able to bond over learning moments, but also our mistakes. Of course, we aim to make them better, of course, and we get better with every single project. But really, just those small wins of like, oh, I like that as well, or just our similarities through studio or whatever it might be, and you kind of find that common ground, and that's really this is a great way to just leverage our different perspectives because there's so many different people and a mixture of people here in Atlanta, and of course, when you are able to work in other offices, you learn so much about experiences and people you didn't know. So just really kind of find that common ground that you sometimes realize, oh wow, you might be from X, Y, and Z, but I had a very similar experience, and I have empathy for you because I can empathize with that situation or that moment. So
Absolutely. That's how we communicate as University of Maryland graduates. We all look at each other and say, "Oh, I went through that too. I went through that too." Amaka, how do you find community?
Like I'll give an example here at the HOK Toronto office. Everyone, I find the work environment here is like amazing. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, yeah, but like it's really good. I really love the people here. They're very, very friendly, and it's easy to talk to my seniors, and obviously I have like juniors and people I talk. My classmates from university that also work here at HOK. So like during lunchtime, it's like a whole vibe, and everyone is saying hi to each other. How was your weekend? So that community is really helpful, especially in your work environment. It makes you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, it's not going to be hard for you to come to work because you know you're going to be in a good space for you to put out the best work that you can provide. Yeah, so I really like the people here. It's definitely a bonus.
I'm glad you have that experience because I definitely can agree with the fact that our seniors and our principals here at HOK are very approachable and they are just like everyone else, but they have these titles that make them seem daunting. Even Susan will walk by and I'll stop her and speak to her for a moment, and it's just refreshing to know that we can communicate and we don't have these barriers between different levels of employment. Now, Ben, how do you find community?
I think some of it is, for me at least, is the culture that you set, the example that I try to set in terms of trying to communicate with the folks in our studio, but also I'm also interested in, engaging with the broader community, that I live in. So for me, it's Dallas and Texas generally, but being both an internal resource to people in our staff here and we've got some really wonderful people, and I think we've created an environment where people are creating their own initiatives around social things or around, points of interest, common interests. So I think that just creating that environment and hopefully encouraging that environment to flourish is part of how we try to create community in our studio. And then for me personally, I'm also invested in extending kind of our reach as a studio and for me individually in terms of contributing to the community I live in and getting involved in the AIA, getting involved in some other organizations that are either interested in causes or supporting things that I'm interested in or ways that I feel like I can create that sense of community that's not just my work community, but my, broader community of architects or practitioners or just citizens. And that's equally important to me because there's lots of folks, we view ourselves at some level as, we're the small community of maybe people of color or people of different origins and within the architectural space, but we have lots of professionals that are in similar instances in some ways in other professions. So I have, friends that are in real estate or in finance or in other industries that, we find common cause in some ways in that as well. So I think that's a value, is to feel like not only are we not alone in this profession, but we're not alone professionally in our communities. So those things are important to me.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. I have been able to benefit from the HOK Impact Community Service engagements we've had over the past year that I've been at HOK. And it is incredibly rewarding to work with other firms and collaborate to do something for the community. For instance, we did a project with DCBIA, and we revitalized a forested area and turned it into an engaging park garden area. And HOK's job was to design a portion of that, and I took that as a new employee under my wing as my project that I was able to do. It was my first opportunity to do anything landscape oriented that actually got built. And I had Stephen Beecham, Lana Yoon, Nita, Tivasun coming up to me asking me what we should be doing. And I thought that that was so funny that we had that kind of difference in workflow where I'm normally speaking to them and reporting to them. They were coming to me, and it made me feel very empowered in that moment. Wonderful. Thank you for all of your answers. We are going to think about advice now. The first advice related question is, what advice would you give to your younger self? And we'll start with Ralph.
I would say seek a mentor as soon as possible. And actually, it's plural. I should make it plural. Mentors. Really seek them out, various stages, and of course, they could be as close as 2 years or 3 years ahead of you, right? And so, really being able to have that knowledge, the wealth of knowledge from all those experiences, whether you actively go through them or not, they can provide you insight to circumvent or even to proactively get ahead of some scenarios. And so I always tell even students that are kind of in the programs that I am to say, you get one at each level, right? You might get someone who's 5 years ahead of you, 10 years ahead of you, who might be a firm owner, who might be a principal, et cetera. And they could also vary in what their roles are, right? Maybe a PM, maybe a technical person, maybe a designer, so that you can truly understand that the paths are limitless. And so that really gives you perspective to how to make things work for you in the best manner. That way, that experience, that trial and error period is going to be passed to you through osmosis, or at least maybe.
Yes, I've had the opportunity to have two mentors. Shout out to Xander and Vanessa. They have given me a lot of guidance for architecture licensure, and I have been able to benefit, like you said, from their trial and error. And I was able to skip to the positive side of that and be able to benefit from their experience in that way. Now, Amaka, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say the same thing, have a mentor. Obviously in the internship program, you also need to have a mentor to guide you in your progress. And last year I joined the HOK mentoring program, and Tim Gades was my mentor, which was really nice. It was really easy to talk to him about things architecture and things different from architecture. And also, like here in the HOK office, it's so easy to talk to my seniors and ask them for advice. I would say to my younger self, don't be afraid of chasing your dreams and your goals. Like, do what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, it's your life that you get to live, right? Not anybody else's life. So if you need to like work hard and like focus and just go for it, there's nothing holding you back. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Ben, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think there's probably, I would say there's three things that I would say, and it's one of them I was fortunate enough to kind of know, but I would say learn to draw. I was fortunate enough to kind of draw a little bit, and computers kind of got introduced into the profession, and I kind of thankfully kept that. And it's a piece of advice I give to every young person that's interested in design. Just learn to physically pick up a pencil, a pen, strike a line, be able to express an idea is number one. Number two would be learn to translate your ideas into being able to speak to people and communicate them clearly. It's a really important skill set that we as architects hopefully have, is the ability to express abstract ideas and help people visualize things that they as non-practitioners cannot. And then the third thing I would say is just get out of the studio. I know, especially in the school environment, it's very easy to be highly focused on just being up all night and doing all those things with the people in your class, and you kind of have that shared experience, which is immensely valuable. But it's equally valuable to forge relationships, which hopefully will become lifelong relationships for you, both as just resources. Frankly, some of those people end up being clients, and that's not the reason to do it, but I think it just broadens your not just your skill set, but your exposure to the world. I think makes you a better human being, and that in turn will make you a better architect. So I would say that those are the three things that I would suggest to myself, to remind myself to do.
Thank you for saying that. That's very valuable for me as a young design professional as well, because I've had feedback where people will say, you're spending too much time in the computer. You need to go out and draw and really see environments. And one day in a very traumatic crit pinup we had, someone told me, you need to look at buildings more. And I took that offensively at first, but every single day I think about that and I realize that it's true. Like, we do need to look at buildings more and we need to digest them and draw them and recreate them and reformat them and continuously have iterations. So, as traumatic as it was that day, I do find value in that comment. All right. Well, we did touch on some advice we would give to young professionals in that question, because a younger version of ourselves was a young professional. But do you have anything to add from the perspective of architecture? What advice you would give to a young professional in this industry?
Me? Or
Yes.
sure, I'll
Anyone,
go
go
first. Yes.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I'm probably the oldest here. So I would say that the arc of your career, if you choose to stick with it, is long. So view it as a continual journey of learning. And like many things, the challenges are different at different stages. As you get more experienced and you're given more opportunity, there's lessons that you learn. There's also maybe things you have to unlearn as your role changes. So I would say that's an important thing. It's like, there's a level of like you get good at something, and then there's a choice of like, okay, am I gonna continue to get good at these renderings, or am I gonna learn to do something else? Learn the technical side so that I can be a more well-rounded person. So I think just having that thought and that awareness of the progress of your career, and having a thought about where you imagine you might want to go, the things you're interested in exploring in your career, is an important thing to be mindful of when you're younger. And then to that end, having people that will be supporting you, mentors, friends, colleagues, as you think about that path is equally important. So I would say, forge those relationships and then be mindful of where you see your career vision going.
Absolutely. It's very important to look for mentors, as Ralph and Amaka suggested, but it's also important to follow those who are in the position that you may want to be in. And you may not be able to have those people as mentors, but Instagram and LinkedIn provide us such close access to people who are our idols and our inspirations. And very often I find myself just sending a message to people and you can get a response if they are active. Like, you can connect with those who you think are incredibly important, because we're all humans. So in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next question. What are you most looking forward to in 2024? We'll start with Ralph.
So for me, I kind of answering the prior question and this question is to continue to be a sponge. I am technically savvy, but I know very little compared to the grand scheme of things, right? So all of us do, right? And so as I continue, my aspirations continue to be a sponge day in and day out to learn as much as I can, even though I might be on a technical track. really learn. I learned things from my design principal. I learned things from junior staff. I learned things from project managers all the time, and continue to learn and pull all of that information. I see myself as like just mining data from all of them. It's like I know some, but I'm just gonna mine and anyone who's good at what they do, I want to work with them so that I can mine that data and be better at my craft. And so that's kind of my aspiration for the rest of the year. Just continue to grow in that capacity because there's different projects, different experiences, and you're going to learn something from everyone, not just kind of your mentor, but every day you can learn something and pull something from someone. And I aim to do that every day.
Me too. I appreciate that comment, and I appreciate HOK for facilitating a learning environment. We have so many opportunities to learn here, this panel being one opportunity to learn, and all of the resources available to us. Amaka, what are you the most looking forward to?
Yeah, to add to what has been said, I would say for me, learning has been the thing that drives me on my everyday life. Like when I get so good at a software, I'm just like, okay, I need to learn something else. I need to move into a new field or new like software. For example, I was always on Rhino, and then I was like, okay, now I know everything about this now as much as I can. I need something challenging to get the juices flowing, and I started working on Revit and doing the more technical stuff. And like I said, I have seniors that I call all the time, like, oh, how do you do this and how do you do that? And
Mhm.
just that knowledge, like the yearning for knowledge is what drives me every day, basically. So I would say my goal is just to keep getting better at what I do and learning new things, whether it's in architecture that could, or learning new things in any environment that could also influence our field. Because it's not just architecture is not just architecture. Everything all around us inspires us, whether it's law, whether it's medicine, because we're creating spaces for everybody, right? We're creating spaces for all different kinds of people. So it's kind of you're drawing into what you kind of have to know everything in a way to kind of design for people. So just that like yearn for knowledge is what drives me. And yeah.
That was beautiful. Architecture is not just architecture. I love that. Ben, what are you most looking forward to in 2024?
Um, I'm always just excited about the idea that the future is not written, and that there's going to be just unlimited possibility out there. And so I'm always excited at the beginning of a year because you just don't know where the year is going to take you. And in many ways, new adventures are to me part of the growth that you have is realize that you get to build on the things you've done, and then you get to now experience something different. And I think I'm looking forward to that.
Wonderful. I'm going to take a page from Kim's book and say hashtag more in 24 because that's what I want this year. I want to pass my AREs and meet some of the requirements of the AXP. I still have some time before I'll complete that, but I'm hoping to pass all of my exams this year. So please send me good vibes, send me tips if you think of them. Anyone, even if you don't know me, just send me a message because I could use all the help I can get. Well,
Will do.
I thank you. I appreciate everyone for joining, and I open our team. Thank you, Hannah. I open our attendees to send in some questions in the chat if you have them or share your comments. It would be really nice to facilitate some more conversation in the last few minutes we have. Brad says, talent and inspiration are universal regardless of background, and you all are amazing examples of both. Thank you so much for having the courage to share your perspectives. We are so lucky to have you all at HOK. Thank you, Brad. That was very beautiful. I think there are so many things we can say about this group and HOK as a whole. We are continuously inspired here, and we are so fortunate to be at HOK because any company I've worked for before has not facilitated something like this. And to be able to meet internationally and discuss these types of topics is just phenomenal. Are there any closing comments you all have?
I would just say thank you, Kendall, for moderating today, and for my panelists here. I think it was great to see the different, in many ways, I think we represent kind of slightly different, not generations is too broad, but, kind of paths and geographical locations. So it's good to, as you said, Kendall, that the firm is supporting so many of these types of touch points between the staff, just so that we can celebrate each other and all the richness in all the communities we have in the firm. So thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah, I think it's great that we get to talk to. I would have never met any of you if, like, I guess COVID didn't happen and we didn't start doing like an online conversations and meetings. And it's nice to get to know people from other firms, rather other branches of the HOK. And it's an amazing opportunity to talk to you guys and know more about you. And I like, there's so many things you guys said that I was like taking notes in my head and mentally. I'm like, okay, because
Me
I would,
too.
yeah, because I'm a younger person and you guys have so much advice. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to practice more. I need to draw more for sure. So like, yeah, it's really good to be in this space and to share our experiences.
Thank you. Ralph, any final comments?
Well, I just hope I get to meet everyone. I'm on my HOK office tour. I've been doing that for a while, and hopefully I get to pop in every single office and potentially even work with everyone, because I think we've got great talent across the world, and we also get cool projects. So I just enjoy the community, whether it's locally here in Atlanta with the great rock stars here, or our DC counterparts in Tampa. I just want to work with everybody and work some cool projects. So I look forward to that. So. That's it for
Well,
me.
looks like everyone wants us to come visit, so see you there. Marcus posted a wonderful chart in the chat. I think we should all take a look at this, and also take a look at NCARB by the numbers, because there is a significant amount of data collected about the percentages of minorities in the architectural field. And if we are to look at the far right bar in the image that Marcus sent, only 2% of licensed architects are Black or African American, and that percentage is much less than 1% for African American women. And I think that's a great place to conclude, because we have come very far, but there's still so much more to do. And so by lifting up African Americans in this industry, HOK is encouraging us to pursue licensure and make that percentage. Let's get a whole 1%, girls. Let's do it. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate all of you for being here today, and I will stay in case there is any more feedback. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for joining us.